Hello, and welcome. I'm Mark Schultz, and welcome to another episode of Building Experiences with me, Mark Schultz. 3D, what an topic. It's been one of these things that I've been tracking for some time now, and we're getting a lot of interest from our customers. So I wanted to schedule a show to talk about that. And rather than me trying to make things up, I thought I'd bring the best of the best on. So let's introduce our guests. Alex, how you doing?
Hey, Mark.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's great to have you on the show, and it's probably worth calling out straight away that it was meant to have two guest speakers. Max was supposed to be on the show, but unfortunately he's unwell today. So
Yeah, you're just stuck with me, and as you can see, I haven't even left the lab yet.
it's all right. I got stormtrooper helmets behind me. You've got a lab behind you. It's all good, you know. Yeah. So, Alex, look, I really appreciate you joining me today. Maybe can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about who you are, how long you've been at Adobe, and what you're getting up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to. Thanks. So, Alex Thiers, I'm a senior product manager on the AEM Assets team. I joined Adobe about 4 years ago. I joined the consulting organization working for Scene 7, actually, at the time, which is now Dynamic Media. Working with a lot of customers around their personalization and kind of product configuration, workflows and project management and asset preparation. So a lot of experience working directly with the customers on using our technology. And from there became the product manager of Dynamic Media. And for the last 6 months, I've been leading up our 3D and emerging technology efforts at AEM Assets. So really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of collaboration with different Creative Cloud teams and our Adobe Sensei AI and ML team, as well as our research teams. So a lot of cutting edge stuff that's really fun to dig into.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I think you've already kind of touched on it there. I mean, 3D means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? And historically, we think of 3D. I think of it from a gaming perspective. We look at really cool artwork, but I think it's changing, and there's more of a business adoption of 3D, right?
Absolutely. I mean, just hearing you mention video game, I'm thinking back to Tekken 3 and the large polygons.
Yeah.
And the other one that we really hear a lot from our customers and other folks we talk with is around CAD and those design use cases. And it's great to see both the technology side and the usage side really catching up to getting this out to the wider world.
Yeah, it's good. And by the way, I will remind everyone watching, this is a live stream, so if you do have questions, feel free to type them into the pod. And Alex is, I'm going to put him on the spot. He'll just answer any question you put at him. So we'll go through. But we're going to go through a few things today. I want to, we'll talk about some use cases. Alex, you've got some cool things to share as far as technology and demos. I think we've even got a demo that everyone can try at home. Which is kind of cool. We're bringing the demo to you. And yeah, so maybe let's get into our feature topic. Alrighty, so we're seeing obviously 3D, and Alex, you mentioned that you're working with the Dynamic Media team. What are the use cases? Like, what are people doing in 3D, especially when it comes to online digital experiences, and why Experience Manager in 3D?
Yeah, so a lot of what we're seeing now is around product configuration and product visualization.
Yeah.
So it's really generally centered around e-commerce and retail, and we were seeing this trend heavily before the start of this year, before the pre-COVID era, I should say.
Yeah.
And now it's stronger than ever because of the physical restrictions with shopping, with interacting with products, and that goes traditionally how we worked with this stuff around the e-commerce context, but now there's an absolute dire need for building products, developing products, all of those, that design workflow needs to happen virtually and digitally, and 3D is really the underpinnings of that. And when you combine that with the fact that more and more companies are developing products that have a 3D model in one shape or another, whether that's for a manufacturer or for a marketing use case, it really just adds a lot of exponential value on your existing investments.
And I think, as a consumer, we're starting to get used to having different views. I mean, spin sets were kind of the first wave of this, right? It's like, oh, I can see that they've photographed the product, 12 times, and I can, through some JavaScript wizardry, I can spin that around. But I mean, that's leading to more of a educated audience where they're like, I want to go online, I want to see what the product looks like as if I was in the store. And I think we're also seeing a product in market before it's even built. Let's see what colors people want. I think there's some, shoe manufacturers that are doing this, especially where it's like design your own shoe and visualize it before you even before they even hit the manufacture button.
Absolutely. And what I find most exciting about that is some of those very same manufacturers have gone from digitizing their existing materials, their existing products, to designing in 3D in the first place, and then sending those as their mocks and their designs to the manufacturers. So that digital first workflow is really fascinating, and again, more important than ever given the travel and shipping restrictions globally, but also just from an efficiency perspective. It's just greener, it's cheaper, and it's faster.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just damn hard right now to ship a product around for photography, and the fact that I can have a 3D asset. What's the marketer role in this though? If you think about, okay, historically design is, we're very familiar at Adobe with the creative design. 3D design is a world into its own. It's not something that necessarily you will put a marketer in front of. Okay, here's your modeling software. Just go and change the model and render it out. So, from a workflow, how are you seeing that differ, and what's the marketer role in this workflow?
I think you're spot on. I mean, it's something even for a creative specialist. There's such a steep learning curve. I took some early courses on 3D modeling, and it helped give me a background, but it was daunting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel that way. And that's, for an example, that's where Adobe Dimension has really that's their zen, and it's really what they've been focusing on, is bringing that 3D design in an easy to use way that's intuitive for graphic designers, where you don't have to be a 3D expert. And so that's also our focus. I think there's such a wide ecosystem of 3D specialists, of agencies, of individual contractors, of specialty products that's what they do, and that's all they do.
Yeah.
And what we find with those, when we talk to those personas, is they don't want to change. They're quite happy with the tools they use. This is the greatest thing of talking to Adobe Substance customers, is that they love it. It is absolutely a market leader, but they don't really want to change their workflows. And so we have to figure out a way to
some of the workflow steps. So someone that's not a specialist in that area can actually interact with the assets, put them in the right places for workflow, and then get them into the right areas as needed, or the right display. So I think you've got a few things to show. So maybe we can take this use case by use case and start with some of the math side you're doing with AEM.
Yeah, that sounds great. We last December we released native support for 3D asset management and 3D support in AEM, and the use cases that we encounter are complex. I'll start with the asset management aspect.
Yeah.
And so let's give that a go. Is my screen coming through okay?
Yeah, we can see you. You're live.
All right. So here we have AEM Cloud Service. Now I've got a folder here with a few different products, and I've set these up from a product-centric manner. Of course, a lot of companies, we find, a lot of implementations will have absolute just a huge variety of folder structures and folder tree structures. But what I've done here is set it up by product, because what we find is that a given product, like this chair here, which I'll show, you would expect to have images, right? Here we have these kind of PDP images, where they would be on a product detail page, and quite standardized, white soloed background, and that's very common in what we see with retail and e-commerce. And then of course you have your lifestyle shots. Now what we're finding is that more and more there's a desire and there's a need really for any kind of asset type. So whether that's PDF or PSD, Photoshop documents, or AI, or videos. Now, the big driver that we've seen and that we're answering here is around 3D assets. So I've got a couple 3D assets here that I've already loaded up, and it's the model of that same chair of those images I just showed. Now, when we open this up and we go into the product detail page here, what you're seeing is a 3D viewer that actually by our Adobe Dimension team. This uses the Babylon library. And it's really just a great interactive preview. It supports everything from rotation. You can zoom in and out. You can pan actually. So really nice experience, just full 360 visualization. And what I love about this viewer, there's no shortage of viewers out there, and with any kind of a viewer, whether it's a video or an image viewer, I find there's a tendency to want to build your own and customize it. But when you look at some of the subtle things like the shading and the light interplay and reflections off of metallics, and these aren't trivial to code. And our Adobe Dimension team are just experts in this field. So it was really a pleasure to be able to integrate this directly into the AEM UI. Now, I'll show really quickly. At the bottom, you'll see we've got some thumbnails. And what's great about these is these are actually baked into the file itself. So when our creative team was authoring this asset, they saved some camera presets and named them, which you can see here at the bottom. And those correspond to all these different views that you would typically see, for example, on a PDP page. We've got the ability to reset if you you go way out. You can, of course, reset your perspective here. Help menu. This is into play more on the delivery side, which we'll get to a little bit later. And of course, full screen. So really nice way to interactively and immersively experience this asset that's stored in your DAM.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the values here is that just like in the past, you didn't have to open the asset up in Photoshop to view it. You don't have to go and load the asset in a native tool. It's just right alongside all my other assets in my browser, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So now if I'm a marketer, I'm actually thinking about a campaign. I can go and collect all the different assets, 3D included, pan around. What's your thoughts?
And a lot of our customers have things like custom domains, different CDN rules, and all of that is supported. It's really critical for retail and e-commerce, especially around like Black Friday periods. And so what I love about what we've done here is that the 3D asset delivery is all part of that. And you look at our traffic numbers from last year, I mean, we were getting close to a million hits a second on Black Friday at our peak. And, while I find that in doing some of our market analysis, there's a lot of people out there that can do asset publishing. There's a lot of 3D point solutions, but the ability to just click that quick publish button, generate that URL, and publish it out with that kind of scale is really unmatched, and it's really exciting. We've had a lot of positive feedback from it. Now, one extra fun feature here is I've shown you this viewer from a preview perspective, and here we're just looking at the asset locally. But I've loaded in our viewers tab here, we have the same viewer, and I mentioned we integrated that with our dynamic media viewer library. And so this is, again, deployed for publishing use. And I've already published the asset, so I don't need to publish it again. But here I actually have an embed code button and a copy URL button. And the URL is familiar, but it's a little bit longer because this is actually a combination of the viewer and the asset. And with this, I'll just open another browser here. I could just paste that into a browser and it loads the same experience we just had in previewing that asset with all of the same functionality and interactive support. And that visual consistency is really important when you're previewing the asset and when you're publishing it, so you're seeing it exactly how your customers are.
I think it's probably worth calling out because if people think of AEM, a lot of times they think of websites. But this is almost like a headless use case, right? You're serving the asset up directly, how it's rendered or how it's played back can be, across a different number of systems, not just AEM sites, correct?
Absolutely, and that's really that's the value of that copy URL is that if you're a sites customer, and we'll show in a second, you can just drag and drop that component onto your page and it works like that. If you're a Magento customer, or commerce, you can add in that URL, and all of these different tools support URLs, and that's what we're working with. There's no special Java code, there's no special library, there's no third-party application. That tool, the Substance tools, really came from visual effects and Hollywood and gaming,
Yeah.
and it's just unparalleled materials. And I think what's important to call out there, and you touched on it, is that's what makes these things photoreal. Like if I were to take away the materials on this car that's in front of us, it would just look pretty plain. But when you get up close and you can actually see the light interplay and the imperfections in the paint and the subtlety of the brushed aluminum, that's how you get photorealism. Or I should say that in a combination of lighting. That's how you really get photorealism. Yeah. And they're just, without a doubt, industry leaders in that regard. So it's really exciting to have them on board, because every industry will benefit from this, whether it's retail, apparel or products or packaged goods, or automotive like we're seeing here, or home goods we showed earlier. Just the use is just amazing. And it's really a pleasure working with them. Now, you called out Dimension also, and here we're looking at this 3D model and we can interact with it. Dimension is really around compositing and ultimately around generating your end use assets, whether it's an image or a 3D compressed model like I was just showing. But what I love is the photorealistic image rendering capabilities. I'll pull up this image here.
We had a comment from one of the viewers saying they're disappointed we didn't choose a yellow Lambo.
Nice. Well, they're a little, these aren't the easiest to create. So when we asked for an automotive asset and we got this, we were quite excited, but I'll be sure to ask for the Raging Bull next time.
Yeah.
But what's so cool about this, I mean, this is a PNG. This is an image. In reality, this is an actual photograph of a concrete building and that 3D model that I was just interacting with. And it's rendered out with the lighting to match the scene. And we've got Sensei Power tools that enable you to just click a button and automatically match the lighting. But I mean, when I look at this looks as photorealistic as possible. I mean, you can see the reflections of the scene in the paint.
Yeah.
It just blows me away, the quality improvements in rendering that's happened lately. And this is really what Dimension is for. It's built for people who know Photoshop, people who know graphic design. And like I said earlier, there's such a steep learning curve with 3D. The ability to take an image and just drop in a 3D asset, match the lighting, and generate something beautiful like this. I mean, it's super cool.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I'm just reminded of the workflows of before, briefing a team and, okay, we want to do this, interactive view. We want to have these different views and having to predefine how it's going to look when you product in front of you, to now the product doesn't even have to exist. We just have to be in design phase, being able to wrap it with, realistic, materials, put it in a scene, get perfect lighting, and then being able to put it in front of a customer. All without the product actually existing, means that business models can completely change. And we're already starting to see that, where people are saying, okay, the product's still on its way, like it's on a container. We want to advertise it. We want to get it there. Now there's the opportunity to do that and accelerate business.
Exactly. And, you see that on, in these trends of crowdsourcing products and I wouldn't say that's our typical AEM customer, but in that case, you can get that full interactive preview of it before, like you said, before the product exists. What I find really exciting that has been really recently emerging to us in our conversations with the field is from the public sector and government. And the way that team put it, this was really big for NASA and a lot of the more advanced engineering divisions within the government, is that they needed a way to make this information and this data consumable by senators. So non-technical people, to say the least.
I'm not going to comment.
And when they said that to us, it made so much sense. And there's so much interest from those teams and from those divisions around augmented reality and 3D visualization, because it's impactful and immersive and
Yeah.
really compelling, but it's cheap. Everyone's are being crunched right now, and being able to visualize that is just so powerful. And the bonus, which I didn't consider, but they had been speaking with a few engineering, like physical engineering teams in these groups, and those teams' feedback was that a lot of them work in silos. And so on heavy machinery or the space shuttle, there's a lot of individual componentry, and those different teams aren't really working together as often as they maybe should. And so using 3D models and AR to bring these pieces together to see how one fits into the other, how they fit in a space, that was really exciting for them.
Yeah.
And it's not something that I had really thought of before, but it's just it's a great example of all the potential and the opportunities that are out there.
Fantastic. Any other cool models to show us?
What else do I got? Yeah, I'd like to show you this soda can. It's not a cool model. It's pretty basic, I'll say. But this is one of the cool things that we're doing with Adobe Dimensions. And I got a nice demo here. Let me pull this file up. So this image that you're seeing here is an actual image, but the file behind it is a dimension file. And what's going on here is we've got a static background color. We've got the can model. There's a 3D shape. If you can see it, there's some water condensation around this, and that's a shape itself. But the real important part is the design, is the label on that can. And so, we've been thinking about these different workflows and speaking with customers and the different problems that we can solve. And one of them is content velocity, right? We talk about this all the time. And you think about the volume of assets needed for a given product or a given campaign, and it can be overwhelming. And that's why a lot of brands, I find, look to reuse assets so much, because it's just the overhead of creating new. So we've done something really cool here where we've integrated with Dimension in the cloud. And I've set up a kind of a demo folder here where I've just uploaded a lot of images. And you can probably tell from all the outdoor photos that I've been in lockdown for too long and looking to go to the beach. But I've got some label designs down here, and I like to talk about this, like, if you think about a creative team sending you new designs, if you think about the proof that you might get from that team, it's a 2D image, but you want to see it on the packaging, on the product that it should be placed on. And we've developed this way to automatically generate that rendering with everything predefined. So the lighting in the scene in that original asset that I showed you, that lighting is predefined. The camera angle here that we're looking at is set. The condensation is static, but the rendering, like the interplay between the reflection on the ground and the reflection on the can and the dispersion through the water droplets, all of that is dynamic rendering. And this is possible now with a variety of tools, but you need a powerful machine to do it, and it bogs that machine down even when it is that powerful. It's a synchronous process. You got to wait for it to finish. So what I've loved that we've done here is we've just automated it. So you upload that label asset, and we've pre-configured this, and you just get a nice preview within minutes. So this is one of the things we're working on. And again, the 3DI teams on the Creative Cloud side, they're just such a pleasure to work with. And we're not really trying to tackle those advanced 3D SME problems. We're really looking to make this more democratized and open for the world.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's the same as there's a time and a place for a marketer to take a design and tweak it for publishing versus doing design work in Creative Cloud. Same thing here. It's not all use cases, but where we can speed up the process by, as I always kind of call it, like democratizing the tools and the process, so more people can be involved. Instead of writing a brief for someone to make a small change, you can make the change yourself. I think that's absolutely gold to speeding processes up. And I'm sure there's a lot of use cases apart from just labeling a can of how you can start to use this. But I mean, from a technology perspective, taking a model and wrapping it in real-time server side and delivering it, at the touch of a button is ultra cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether that's generating that product imagery or generating that 3D asset itself so you can interact with it, the need is out there. People want to interact with products. See that in the sales. I mean, I don't have the numbers off the top of my hand, but when shutdown fully hit, I think we very quickly were topping Black Friday sales numbers. So people were cooped up, looking to buy products that they could really visualize and interact with.
Yeah, I don't know about all parts of the world, but it's like in Australia, shopping is a sport, right? It's something we do for fun, and if we can't go out and do it, we do it online. So, we need to make the experience as good as, if not better. Let's talk about delivery and talk about, okay, so I've got this asset. You showed us a headless example, but you also mentioned AEM sites. So maybe talk about what you're doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. So in June, we released in the June release for AEM, and this is for on-premise, managed services, and cloud service across the board. We launched, in addition to support and dynamic media, we also have a 3D component in sites. So I can go ahead and show that, actually.
Yeah.
Here we are. Let's go over to sites, and I'm just going to create a new page from a template. So you can tell this isn't a pre-canned demo. This is live. So we'll just pick one of the weekend site templates, just a content page here. And we'll do 3D live.
Good real-time demo of how to launch a product really quickly, right? So I have no page. I now have a page. Now I can put some content on there.
Exactly. And what I love about this is the templated approach. It's expected that you'll have someone authoring your templates and authoring your pages. And here we have a blank page where everything's laid out. We just need to drag and drop our components onto it. So I'm going to go over here to my browser and navigate to the component browser. We've got a 3D media component here that you can see at the top of the list. I'll just note really quickly that this is a dynamic media component, and so you do need to enable it for your template before it shows up here. But once it's been enabled, you can literally just drag and drop it. And I'm going to jump over to my asset browser. Now, we can navigate by folder. We've also added a new asset type down here, 3D. And let's see, let's go back to our chair. Just drag on that asset onto the 3D media component. All right, looks good, looks consistent. And I'll just jump over to preview, and it's that same experience that we expect, that we know is approved for our customers. So really powerful. I mean, we did that. If you start fully from scratch, upload the asset, publish it, go here, drag and drop it. I mean, we're less than 4 or 5 clicks and we have a fully interactive site.
Yeah, and I was noticing some of the file extensions you had there. So it was a GLB file, which is not an Adobe file format. It's just a standard file format.
Yeah. So GLB is, I think it's a Google format actually, but it's an open standard that's driven by the Kronos group, and Adobe is a part of it. We've got a team member on the 3DI side who's directly with them. And what's great about it is this space is changing so rapidly, and the feedback that we are getting from our customers and then passing on to folks like Google is really driving the roadmap, and rapidly, much more rapidly than I expected. And so there's things like hotspots and call to action and dynamic loading. These things are coming into that format, and they just need to be ratified for the standard. And then we can use it. And it's a collaborative effort from everyone from Adobe, Autodesk, other industry leaders on the creative side,
Yep.
but also on the consumer sides like Target, Nike, a large list of others. So that it's really a big, healthy operation to drive those. Now, there is one other that you may have seen there, which is USDZ, and that's a proprietary app. And for consumption these days, digital and mobile first consumption, I mean, that's the biggest barrier to engagement is ease and time of.
Maybe you just talk through the difference between them. One is I for at least a couple of minutes. And what it makes me think of, well, if I'm doing it and, I don't even want to buy a chair right now, it's engaging, right? It's one of those things that it's actually getting customers to actually do more with your products. And we obviously, the poster child for this is IKEA right now, as far as, bringing IKEA products in there and putting them around your house and seeing how they work. But this is very quickly going from something that's very specialized and only a few brands can do into something that, drag and drop the 3D format into AEM, drag and drop it onto the page, and you can share up the same type of experience.
Exactly. And that's really what we're really trying to drive here, is just making it so easy to use that you can really let your creative team do what they want to do and do what they specialize in, which is creating these beautiful assets.
Yeah.
And then once they're up, we have automated workflows. We have so many tools to get those easily into AEM, and then really that power can start to take off. And whether that's the intelligent delivery or personalization and real-time streaming, I mean, there's just so much exciting potential there for these immersive experiences.
What's the future look like? Like, where do we go from here? I mean, there's a lot of functionality you've put into products. I'm assuming you're not just done and working on something completely different. Obviously sensitive to, making release announcements. What's the vision? Like, what can you share about what you're
Yeah.
excited about?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, we can't discuss NDA kind of stuff, but, I think there's a couple core areas that we're heavily looking at. And when I say we, I mean both AEM, but also the Creative Cloud side and 3DI, so Aero and Dimension and Substance. A big one is around product configuration, and that traditional dynamic media use case of having a product builder, having that in 3D is crucial. And there's been a lot of demand for it over the years, and the technology's finally got to a point where we can do that. We can deliver that quite easily. And so we don't have an out of the box offering quite yet. And, the reason is the hard part isn't the delivery of it itself or the authoring. It's making it scalable. And when you talk to customers that have tens of thousands of products and maybe tens of thousands, or if not hundreds of thousands of variations, whether those hardware variations or material like different fabrics, it's prohibitive to generate the assets that you need for it, especially now. People used to be okay with 4 images of a product, and you need 9, a video. You need all of this. And to generate it the traditional way, whether that's a photo studio or having a creative team manually create these one by one, it's a challenge. And even what we find is even teams that have the know-how and have those workflows built in, it's expensive. And so the product configuration is a big one that we're looking at in a big scalable way. And also what I touched on earlier with the integrating with Dimension and the ability to automatically generate these images and 3D assets from directly within AEM without having to go to a tool if you don't want to. That's a big focus.
Yeah, fantastic.
And there's a lot of exciting stuff that's going on with the formats themselves, and this is a challenge, but it's also it's an exciting space, man. It's the Wild West because these formats are changing monthly. There's new features coming regularly, and so WebXR, for example, was just is being heavily discussed right now, and so it's exciting. But there is not a lot of standardization, both in the way these things get consumed and the way they're authored, and especially not with the formats. I mean, it's a not so big secret that 3D formats are challenging, and so we really just want to take that guesswork out of it.
Yeah, and I think, in summary, as you mentioned, like earlier, when you were showing a few things, you could spend a lot of time as a brand thinking, okay, let's make our own player and let's make our own storage solution, let's make our own delivery solution. Or you could actually, use an environment like this where we're taking the foundational stuff away, so you can think about, some of the cool stuff you can do, and speed up the workflow. I think that's kind of the compelling story there. Just like the wave we did with, my background before Adobe was pre-press. Like I'm used to like getting files and then pulling them apart to get out to a printing press. It feels like 3D is going through the same journey, right? Highly special. I mean, 3D right now, you've got people who just do lighting, people who just do, rigging and materials, etc. We're going through that same wave with 3D right now, and it's obviously a fun journey to be on. So yeah, there is another question that came through. Since technology changes quickly, any suggestions on how to prepare for a career in this field? Like, how do people stay up to date?
It's a really good question. Um, I personally rely on our 3D team to
Yeah,
keep me up to
yeah,
date because it is changing so rapidly. But in all seriousness, I think there's a lot of great resources out there. And I mentioned the Kronos group, and they're really, really a great resource to see what's going on with these standards as they're discussed
yep,
and ratified. I think there's a lot of great learning resources as well. Dimension itself has a lot of good tutorials for beginners. Linda and LinkedIn Learning has a lot of great courses on using our tools and others. And what I find is you really just got to kind of dive in. There's a great tool called Blender that's free. It's open source, and it's used by a lot of modeling professionals to get in there. And these tools aren't generally cheap. They're not generally accessible. They're quite specialty. And so having an open source tool like that is really great.
yeah,
I'd also follow our Substance group on LinkedIn and Instagram. They have a lot of great competitions for modeling and texturing, and both for students and professionals. Also, a lot of great tutorials, and I just get tons of inspiration from watching what they're doing in partnership with NVIDIA, with these game and VFX studios. So.
yeah, good. And we'll put some links in the show notes to some of the products you mentioned there. For me personally, like, even Adobe Stock has 3D objects. You can bring them into Dimension. Without knowing anything about 3D, you can start to move them around and put new materials on it. So it's kind of a fun way to get started. And then, if you're already working with 3D assets, and of course, then the AEM side, the features are in the product now, so you can start to play with them. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So look, unfortunately, I think we're at that stage of the show where we need to start wrapping up. Alex, it's been really to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you sharing your words of wisdom. I'm like, I just want to play with 3D stuff all day for the rest of the day. I'm sold. So, can we get you back on the show?
Happy to. Anytime, man. Anytime. And next thing, hopefully in a couple months, I got something new and fun to show you guys.
All right, we'll hold you to that. Yeah. And look, for everyone who's watching either live or the recording, thanks for tuning in. I always remind everyone, I'm not a good YouTuber unless I say hit the subscribe button. So there you'll get all the updates. You'll know when the people are on the show. In the next few weeks, we do have a session coming up on single page applications and how that's working. And also, you saw an example here of using AEM Cloud Service. We're going to be talking about some of the nuances behind that and how to deploy to it. plus other assets and workflows and a whole bunch of things coming up. So, looking forward to everyone joining it. So that's it for the show today. Again, thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Mark. Bye.